Please read from sheets. I am Sofa King. Now
During the mid to late 80s, there was an outbreak of crack cocaine in black neighborhoods all throughout the United States. Gary Webb, a San Jose journalist, wrote the Dark Alliance series, which expressed Nicaraguan cocaine was abundantly being smuggled into the US via large-scale crack dealers based out of Los Angeles. Webb explained that crack sales were allegedly funneled to the CIA-supported Contras. The Reagan administration did acknowledge that cocaine smuggling helped fund the Contra rebels, but in the States it was not authorized by the US government or the resistance leaders.
You know, what Brad said earlier, the CIA wasn't selling drugs to people in South Central LA to fund things or to deteriorate South Central or whatever, but the CIA had people
It was their idea.
I mean, it was their idea. They were embedded with all these all these Contra groups. They were watching them and helping them smuggle drugs into the country so that they would end up in South Central LA. They were completely knowledgeable of it, but it's not like it was their call, but once the ball started bouncing.
Many years after Webb's article went public and the government admitted to the whole scandal, Gary Webb was found in his house with 2 gunshot wounds to his head. It was ruled a suicide. Normally, when you go to an airport, you'll see various arts and sculptures that represent the culture, the town, and the airport itself, but not in Denver. You'll see things like this, and this, and this, and this. And this is completely separate from the fact that the base is set up like a giant swastika, or that there is actually proven underground bunkers built below it. This segment is about the strange artwork, and why the Denver airport owes a lot of it to the Illuminati. To begin with the unsettling artwork, we start with Blucifer, the giant 32-foot sculpture of a bloodthirsty bronco, one of the first things you see when arriving to Denver Airport. A lot of people wonder why they would put such a scary sculpture at an airport, especially when you find out that the sculpture artist was killed during the making of the sculpture, when the head fell off of it and crushed him during the production. Also, not too long ago, stood a 26-foot tall sculpture of Anubis, the god of the dead, or the god of funerals. If you go looking around the airport, you'll find things like demons coming out of suitcases and very, very horrendous and graphic paintings of what appears to be a Nazi-style soldier killing children. A lot of conspiracy theorists think that the disturbing statues and artwork pays tribute to the Freemasons or the New World Order. Now that can be debated. However, the giant underground base that lives beneath the airport, which houses multiple sources of fuel and resources, even solar energy fields, cannot be contested.
That this underground factor is an Illuminati New World Order base that's either a headquarters for where they're currently operating, or they argue that it's going to be one of the reasons that they would have built these solar fields and they have all this fuel is because once the apocalypse hits, once it's the end of the world, the Illuminati will relocate to Denver. They just fly to the airport, and then they've already got underground bunkers, fuel, solar power. They're 25, I mean, it's Denver, so they're in the middle of the mountains. They're not really near civilization aside from Denver, and they're 25 miles outside of Denver in the first place.
Public health authorities claim that water fluoridation at appropriate levels is a safe and effective means to prevent tooth decay. However, those opposed argue that water fluoridation can cause serious health problems and does very little to combat cavities in the tooth. So, in short, the cons outweigh the pros immensely. Less than 6% of cities in the United States refuse to fluoridate their water, with most of those cities being in Oregon. The main evidence that water fluoridation is harmful is that it can naturally occur in water. So, more being introduced can lead to an over-fluoridated water system, which does have negative effects on the human skeletal system. And some even claim that it can cause harmful brain diseases, possibly attributing to Alzheimer's.
I spent some research time trying to find out the negative side effects of the dosage that Americans are getting. If you're getting 0.7 or 0.9 or whatever micrograms per liter, which is what is in the water supplies, plus getting it in your toothpaste and or mouthwash, so you get it higher. So with those, the two things that I saw based on those dosages is there was a study that came out of peer-reviewed journal in Harvard called the Environmental Health Perspectives, and it reached the conclusion, doing all like a pretty in-depth, pretty legitimate study, and it said that it did find that using this level of fluoride, their final conclusion was, quote, children in high fluoride areas had significantly lower IQ scores than those who live in low fluoride areas. There is a conspiracy that is out there that the Challenger, the Space Shuttle Challenger, either it was faked, although I'm not sure faked is exactly the right word, because I think most of the people who say it was a hoax still think a shuttle did launch and explode. But the thought is that the astronauts were not actually on board and that they are still alive and well.
Easily the most convincing and quite surreal conspiracy of this countdown. The theory claims that the astronauts aboard the Challenger space shuttle that did explode on live television in the mid-80s are actually still alive to this day and can be easily researched via the internet. The overwhelming evidence is that a simple Google search can display 6 of the 7 astronauts with either the same name or slightly altered versions of their names, still alive today and have very prestigious professions. To add to this bizarre situation, the apparent doppelgangers look extremely similar and are the same age as the astronauts that allegedly died during that Challenger explosion.
Just so the listeners know, when I was told that our topic was going to be the conspiracy of the Challenger not having actually exploded or that they're still alive and the International Space Station being a hoax, I immediately said, this is ridiculous.
Right.
We're going to find nothing. These are the lamest conspiracies I've ever heard of. Like, I've come into the show with a dozen conspiracies that I thought were true, researched them, and walked away and said, no, that was BS. This, however, is a little bit creepy.
Oh, really?
I'm willing to admit on the radio, I walked into this thinking this is going to be complete BS. And by the time I got done looking and seeing these pictures and how amazingly similar they look, and then seeing that these people have the same exact or a slightly tweaked name, and they have the same expertise that they had while they were astronauts, except now they're teaching it at prestigious universities.
Which is probably what astronauts do when they retire.
Sure. And I just have to say, if this is true, and these people weren't on the Challenger when it exploded, who mishandled this conspiracy?
Thanks for watching Life Bytes. I want to give special thanks to the Sofa King Podcast. You can catch them on iTunes or at sofakingpodcast.com. Please subscribe and we'll see you next time.